Hello, my friend. The dogs start barking, of course. Let me get rid of them for a second so they don't bother us. Come on. Hello, everybody. Waiting for Crime and Cask to join. Let me invite him, actually. Oh, there he is. Okay, I just invited him. Crime and Cask. Hopefully he will be on in a second or two. The Buffalo... Hi, Emma. The Buffalo Bills. Oh, thank you for the love already, you guys. Hi, Kim. Hello, everybody. Hello. I just invited Crime and Cask, so hopefully he'll be here any minute, and we can talk all things Murdaugh. Hey, Nicole. Hopefully, I was just talking to him a minute or so ago, so hopefully he'll be here shortly. 25-20. Yeah, it was a heartbreak, you guys. The Bills lost today in what was supposed to be a good game. Oh. I just invited you, Crime and Cask. Oh, there you go. You clearly know. Hello.
Hey there.
Do you want to show your face, or do you not want to?
Yeah, there we go.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for joining. Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I know you said you were at a concert last night, so we'll try to make this as easy as possible.
That's okay. I had fun. It was an all-day concert in Charleston.
Fun. Who played?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of different bands. It's called the Riverfront Revival. It's the old naval base that they closed down, and Darius Rucker's trying to get basically it revived down there, and it was for MUSC Children's Hospital. And it was a cool event. They have 2 stages running, and it starts at like, I don't know, 1 o'clock. Guy by the name of LV Shane was there, Carter Faith, so many different bands. And then Darius Rucker, of course. He was the headliner, came out at night. It was a good time. That's his second year in a row he's done that. And I mean, it's so cool because it's right on the water. There's all these boats and yachts hanging out there and big ships going by, and there's just music, and it's just a great day. And the weather was perfect too.
Yeah, that is so fun. So you are in Charleston or that area?
No, I'm a little bit north of that. Yeah, I'm more by Columbia.
Okay, gotcha. I used to, when I worked for a military housing developer, I was down in Beaufort all the time at Camp Lejeune, Cherry Point,
Yeah,
all the names.
it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I really liked it. I actually really did.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's a small town. Yeah, but it's quaint. They're old. South Carolina's been around forever.
right.
Um, you get some of these old brick roads. I love the
Yeah,
architecture. It's just amazing. Absolutely.
agree.
Uh,
There, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah. So I came in on the live and I caught the tail end of the Bills. Sad way to start your day. They're such a good
Horrible.
team.
It's like, you know what the thing is they're very hot and cold, right? Like last week against Miami, they were like a Super Bowl team. I mean, Josh Allen's stats were out like insane. He beat Tom
Right.
Brady in stats.
Right.
And then you have a week like this. I mean, but again, I was mad, but then I was like, you know what? I'm not as, I mean, our entire defense is gone pretty much. Every Trey Wright, is gone, is not playing anymore. Then you saw Matt Milano got hurt today. So like our defense is gone. Jacksonville had been in London for 2 weeks, so they were jet lagged. Exactly, Mike. They were jet lagged. And also, I think the refs made some pretty bad calls. So
Somebody told me there's like talk of Jacksonville probably being the team that they want to move to England first.
really.
Whether there's any merit to that or not, I don't know. But they really want to grow the Europe market.
Interesting. My girlfriend, who is a Jacksonville fan, said that they always play great in London. Like they play the best they ever play in London every time.
Kelly said she's a Pats fan, Sorry to hear that, Kelly.
Same, same, same. Sorry about that. Who's your team? Do you have a team?
I like the Packers. Been a
Hmm.
Packers fan for. I've been a Steelers fan probably since I was a kid. I used to wear a Terry Bradshaw jersey, like the my mother would have to drag it off of me because I'd never
Love
take
it.
it off. Yeah.
Love it. So fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know Mike is a Browns fan, but yeah, I'm diehard Bills fan, like born and raised, lived through, wide right, lost Super Bowls, Music City Miracle, 13 seconds, all the things. It's like we just can't get it right. We
Those
can't.
those four Super Bowl losses. I mean, after a while, you really begin to think there's a jinx on your team. You
You
know what
really
I mean?
do. And you say like, are we ever going to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that.
Minnesota's the same way.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Minnesota's the same way. I just saw them lose to Chiefs. The Chiefs apparently are going to be on TV every week now. So
Doesn't surprise me.
yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. It's ridiculous. So I'm like mad, but I'm not like as mad as I was the first week when we lost against the Jets because that was just horrible. I feel like there was a lot stacked against them this week. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's this is what it's like a roller coaster ride when you're a Bills fan for real. So many Cowboy fans in the house, like for right, Margie, like everybody loves America's team,
Yeah.
the Cowboys.
Yeah. I don't know who the clear cut winner is going to be this year. I know Detroit's actually looking pretty good. I'm just watching some highlights now. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? It's too early in the season.
It is. It's
Yeah.
too early to tell. Chiefs, I'm sick of like I'm sick of like the same teams winning though over and over. That's why it was nice when LA won. And Cincinnati was in the Super Bowl because like those were fresh faces, fresh teams that like don't win. Cowboys, New England, like it's Philadelphia. It's like always the same,
Yeah.
always. So I'm over
Yeah.
it.
There's another Green Bay fan.
I know, right? There's lots of that's watch it beat Philly again. Yeah, I know. That's but I could talk football all day. So if you ever want to do a live when we talk football, you let me know because
Yeah.
I could talk football all day, but I'm not sure if that's why people are joining. Although maybe it is. That is why people are joining.
This is
Right.
why people are joining. Let me tell you.
So let's start out with this for anybody who doesn't know who you are, you're new to them, they haven't seen your videos. Tell us a little bit about you and who you are.
Yeah. I mean, I was just a regular guy living in South Carolina. I heard about the Murdaugh murders almost immediately after they happened because it was just, it was world news after a while. But when you lived in South Carolina, it was all over the place right after it happened. I mean, we're a fairly small state, old state, but I heard about it and I was like, oh my God, like that is awful. Like everybody else did, right? And honestly, I'm not a author. This is my first book, so I guess now I'm an author. But I listened to podcasts, I read stories, I watched news articles about it. And if you recall, when the prosecution was investigating the case, of course, they're not going to talk about it. And then when before they went to trial, hardly anything came out. I mean, they were tight-lipped about everything. So really, any of the evidence that came out was very small and in between. Jim and Dick were fighting with the prosecution about, they need the evidence so they can look at it and do their due diligence. And it just never came. And then the trial started, and then I started looking at all the evidence that was presented at the trial, and I started scratching my head, like, this isn't really the narrative that y'all been saying that this thing really is. And so it was really after the trial, I probably started breaking down the evidence more and doing these videos on it. And I would take a specific piece of evidence and run through it in my mind, write it down on paper, maybe even go do an experiment on it. And I would get different results. And I was like, huh. And I go and put it up on a video like this in TikTok, and people will go, oh my God, I've been thinking the same thing. Why does this not work? But before I go any further, I do want to say, I think Alec Murdaugh is a bad dude. I think he's done some bad things. He stole. He's clearly lied in that trial, and to other people in his family and friends and everybody else. So let's get that out of the way. I don't have an affiliation with the Murdaughs. I don't work for the Murdaughs. I don't work for the attorneys. I'm just a guy. That's it. I'm just a guy who got really interested in it, and I started doing some TikToks, and the TikTok thing kind of blew up. And then from there, somebody asked me, they said, you should write a book. I think it might have been Willow who's on here, and said, you should write a book. And I was like, write a book? I'm like, I'm going to write a book about, everybody's going to be writing a book about Alex Murdaugh, the fall of this and the fall of that. And I started thinking about it more and more. And I thought, you know what? If I do a book, I'm going to just do it about my TikToks. Like, take the evidence, break it down. Here's what the evidence was presented. Here's the testimony that came along with it. And here's what I did. And here's what I think. And this is how I think it changes that narrative. And I did that. And I have 32 chapters. Somehow I pounded out about 250 pages in this book. And here we go. I mean, this thing's ready to go in about a week or so.
That is like completely amazing, crazy, all the things sort of wrapped up in one, right? Because like you said, you were just like an average guy living down there. Were you ever like, were you the person who watched, Forensic Files and all those like sort of murder documentaries? Or were you like, no, that's no, I just like am not.
People don't like watching those kind of mysteries with me because I usually halfway through it will tell them who I think it is. And then, sometimes, most of the time I'm usually right because it's TV. But now my background's more of in business where I was in turnaround management. So I traveled a lot. I'd go somewhere for 2 or 3 years and turn around an area, whether it be sales or finances or whatever. So I'm used to looking at large volumes of data, kind of breaking them up, putting the puzzle back together. I think Will Folk said it on Fitz News, I don't know, on his weekly wrap-up show. Sometimes you just got to take that puzzle box and dump it out and start over. And you got to turn it this way to make it look like what you think it looks like. I don't know. It's just, I'm able to just do that. And it's not like it bounces out at me. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times of listening to somebody talk and I catch a different word and it changes for me the narrative on it. And then I start going back like, that's what I've been missing, that little piece right there. And it kind of changes it.
So you've always been one to sort of analyze things and see like kind of, okay, this doesn't make sense, but this way it makes sense, and sort of, is that kind of what?
Yeah, and then explain it in a way that most people can understand. So because this case is complicated.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very.
most other cases are, but this one is really complicated. There are so many moving parts on it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones that was really hard was the time between about the time of the murders down at the kennels and tossing Maggie's phone. Because you have, in my opinion, there was 2 killers. It wasn't Alec. So you have 2 killers down there. You have Paul and Maggie down there. You have Alec back up at the house, and everything that goes on between 8:50 and 9:07 is really hard to follow in the SLED timeline that's out online. And if anybody wants to go see it, just go to Google and type SLED Murdaugh timeline, and you can see what I'm talking about. It's up there. I use that a lot. In fact, everything that I do in this book, maybe I said it before, but I use the SLED timeline. I use their evidence. I use testimony. I'm not making stuff up. Like, this is what I think happened. Like, I'm using the actual evidence.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, and I think that that's really important to know that you're not just giving you're giving your opinion, but you have the facts to sort of back it up as well.
Correct. I'm just coming to a different answer. I do get a lot of criticism, and that's fine. I'm open to criticism. I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm 100% right. And if you don't believe me, then you don't know what you're talking about. I get criticism all the time, and I'm open to that. However, when they say, your information's baseless, I said, well, my information's based off of the prosecution's evidence. So if it's baseless, then you're not telling me I'm baseless. You're saying the evidence is baseless. Right. Which I thought, it was a highly circumstantial case.
Very highly circumstantial. I'm watching the second part of the Netflix. I'm sure you've seen those, right?
Yeah, I think I had it done by 10 o'clock that morning when it came out.
So what are your thoughts on that? Because do you think do you think they're portrayed accurately? I mean, I know it's the media. I used to be a reporter. I get it. You kind of have to sensationalize everything. But Netflix is pretty good, I think. Do you feel like that's a good representation of really what happened?
I mean, I don't know if we're all going to truly know. I think that, everybody has a narrative. The defense has a narrative. The prosecution has their narrative. Netflix has their narrative. Lifetime, that movie that's coming up, they're certainly going to have their narrative, and they're going to have their what do you call their artistic bias, maybe how they want it to be slanted. I mean, otherwise people are going to click off.
Right.
But I think for the most part, Netflix got it right. They dramatize a lot of stuff. And they're going with that he did it and questioning some of that with some other people. But I don't
So
know. It was kind of mundane for me. It didn't sway me one way or the other.
yeah. So
Yeah.
let's get to it then. In regards to, you said there was a lot that you would hear at the trial and you'd go back and be like, okay, this doesn't. Tell me the first thing that really said was like a red flag to you, like, whoa, this guy did not do it.
Sure. The digital evidence. And if you watch any of the Netflix stuff, all the prosecution talks about the digital evidence. There's a lot of TV lawyers out there. They talk about the digital evidence, which is what? The phone information, right? We'll talk about the kennel video in a little bit. We can get to that. But the digital evidence to me. So for an example, Maggie's phone and everybody's phone has a GPS on it. Knows where you are. You know, you're driving down the road. But hers somehow stopped because they didn't put it into a Faraday bag. They clicked airplane mode. And so some of her information got overwritten. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I find it really suspect and weird that it got overwritten June 7th, 2021, starting at about 7:30 at night. Like, I need one more hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I'll be able to tell you exactly whether he's guilty or
Mhm.
not.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
her digital evidence is gone from 7:30 on. You know, how do you take Alex still being at Moselle at 9:07, and yet her phone stops at 9:07 on the dot? Honestly, a quarter mile from his house.
Mhm.
And the prosecution would say, well, you know, he picked it up and he put it down and it didn't, the backlight didn't come on or it didn't activate and all these different things. And you remember the guy that was throwing her phone on his desk for the weekend?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, is that not suspect?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how is Alec at Moselle at 9:07 and her phone is on the side of the road?
Right. Right.
And it's how it acted. You want me to kind of go through that with you a little bit?
Please. Yeah, please do. Jules says the flipping the phone got me. So please do. Yeah, go into that a little bit if you don't mind.
Okay, so here's what I think happened, and I talk about this in the book, so I won't go into huge detail, but I do believe that they were killed around 8:50. Okay, and I think the killers hid into the woods. The woods is about 4 feet below ground level where they were, and it's right behind the cabin. There's a lot of trails back there. No one's going to see you. You're just going to hide into these woods. You're going to be unseen. You're in camo. It's heavy, heavy green back there. And it takes about, I don't know, 15 seconds, maybe 12, 15 seconds to run from the woods to the kennel, to the feed room. So it happened very quickly. And I think shooter number 2, if you remember, the sled agent who was doing the reconstruction of the crime scene, she said the first shots from to Maggie were close. She had stippling on them, so they were 2 to 3 feet, no more than 5, from her. To me, that means that person waited until she got right up on her. But it was 41 degrees off of the feed room. So that is about 30 feet and 41 degrees from the feed room. And then the second shots went at 83 degrees. So now I think that person is a lookout because they were facing the main house. The person who was there to kill Paul. They killed Paul. I think he blew back, fell down. Paul came out, shot him again. Maggie heard it, came out of the hangar, throwing her arms up in the air. What the hell's going on? Has her phone in her hand. This guy's like, holy shit. She was supposed to be back with Alec. Why is she doing here? They shoot her. And it's a sloppy shooting. Whoever shot her is not a good shot, or they were really nervous. Probably a combination of the both. So now you have her phone laying on the ground. And they wait about 2 to 3 minutes before they go grab her phone. Her phone is either in her hand or somewhere near her body. And so her phone takes 59 steps. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yep.
So her phone takes 59 steps. And it's a slow 59 steps. Some people have said, well, it's Alec walking with her phone. But if you look at the phone, when it goes from portrait to sideways, portrait, whatever, sideways, it's very slow. So it's like someone's looking at it this way, and then they're changing it this way, and then they're going back this way. It's very slow. And the 59 steps are very slow. The 59 steps take about 2 minutes and 43 seconds, which is about a step every, 3 seconds or so, something like that. And a human walks roughly a couple of feet per step. So it's 149 feet from Maggie's body to where the 59 steps stopped. And the 59 steps stopped right out by the back entrance of the hangar. I'm going to see if I can find it for you. Okay. Do you see that road right there?
Yep.
That's the back entrance to the hangar. Okay. That goes around this way. So they would have walked from this dot to right back here. That's 59 steps. That's 149 feet. You know what else was over there was those fresh tire tracks that the sheriff, the first sheriff on scene, he's got his, flashlight, he's clicking. What are those? Those look like fresh tire tracks. Then Sheriff Chapman, who also testified, talked about the tire tracks and the footprints that led to those tire tracks. And then the police chief or assistant, not police chief, fire chief even said about the tire tracks. So everything ends right there. You start at Maggie's body and you end there. It's 59 steps. It's 149 feet. I've done the math 10 different ways. I've even had ChatGPT help me do it to make sure. So now you're there at about 8:55 and you find nothing on her phone. Alec's not coming back. There's no lights coming back. There's nothing going on. Where they parked, because I've walked it, and where you can hide a vehicle very easily. I was just there last week and showed Tori the spot. And it's about, depending on the person, it's going to be 8 to 9 minutes. So you got to think you're leaving the back hangar and now you're walking back to your truck. It's about 9 minutes or so. Once you get into the truck, you got to get in it, start it, take off. From there, I've also tested this, it's 1 minute. So we're talking about 10 minutes or so, maybe some seconds. And so you left at 8:55 and now it's 9:05 and some change. And that's the next time Maggie's phone picks up. Is 9:05, like 43, I think it is. I'm off by a second if I'm off by a second. And I think at 9:05:43, that's when the truck comes into the back entrance of Moselle, comes around, makes that loop where those tire tracks are, and starts heading back out. Guy standing there with the guns, throws the guns in, grabs her phone, jumps in. Alec has already called her at this point, and that's when her phone also lit up, is when he called her. So now they're in the truck and they're heading out. That's a 15-second drive from the back of Moselle to Moselle Road. They are on Moselle Road at 9:06. If you remember, Alex said he walked outside about 9:06 because he's going to his truck about 9:07. And he said it in one interview, I think it was the 3 or 4 days after the murders. And he says, you know what? I thought I heard them coming back up. Do you recall that?
Mm-hmm.
He thought they heard him coming back up. Now, he didn't know how they got down there. So could have been a buggy, could have been a truck, could have been anything. But he thought he heard him coming back up. And then he said, well, maybe it was just a wildcat I heard. But I did this experiment too. Once you're at 9:06 and you get on Moselle Road, to get to the main entrance, you have to really step on the gas. And if you just killed somebody, you're trying to get the hell out of there, you're going to step on the gas. Mm-hmm. And your engine is going to rev that. You're going to hear that noise, right? And in 15 to 16 seconds, pass um, the Moselle Road entrance, the main entrance, which he would have heard. Then they would have passed by, and then he's like, oh, well, that's not them because he didn't see any lights coming. I believe he heard the killers driving by with Maggie's phone. So what does he do? He calls her. He's like, where the hell are you? She didn't answer. Calls her back. She didn't answer. Now they've already passed Moselle Road, and it's 9:06, and you now get into like 9:20. I think it was 9:20. Excuse me, 9:06:20. And at that point, Maggie's phone then goes from portrait to landscape. I believe that's when the window went down. These two are yelling at each other, get rid of that goddamn phone. He's calling us. He knows. He's tracking us. Something's going on. And out the window that phone goes and lands at 9:06:30. She's got a 30-second backlight. The backlight goes off at exactly 9:07, and it's off forever until the next day.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, I never ever would have thought to put all of that together, but it really, I mean, it honestly really makes sense all of go ahead, all of what you said.
And then you add in the Alec factor, right? Well, he slowed down by her phone, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I've been doing these tests too. So as I said, it takes about 30 seconds to get from the back entrance to where Maggie's phone was thrown. So, and the main gate is about halfway between. So what I did was I took my phone, and I have an iPhone just like he did, and I turned onto Moselle Road from the main gate, and then I hit the gas. But I'm not taking off like a bat out of hell, because I'm just going to my mom's if I'm Alec, right? But I do get up to a speed of 44 miles an hour. Now, I don't know if you've ever been out there at night, but it is pitch black, and okay, you have your headlights on. But my point is, if you're going to text and drive, which I don't suggest to do, but if you text and drive, you're going to take probably your knees and put them up into your steering wheel, and you're going to grab your phone, and you're going to type. And I've done this with the exact words that he typed, which was going to M's, be right back. And he spelled the word right, R-I-T-E. So he didn't do talk to text. It was R-I-T-E. And M's, the iPhone, Siri doesn't know what M's mean, so it's E-M-S. And that took me roughly about 16 seconds to do all that. And then to hit send, you have to hit send. Mm-hmm. And where was I when I hit send? I just passed her phone. And what do you do when you're done with that? You throw your phone down, and then you look back up and you hit the gas. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not like he hit the gas and went 80 miles an hour. You know, he slowed down from 44 miles an hour to 42 miles an hour. And then he sped up. But because he turned right about 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds later on a road called Jonas Road, I'll remember that because of the Jonas Brothers. He turned Jonas Road, and then as soon as he immediately turned right on Jonas Road, he called Buster. Because you just put your phone down, you know you're going to turn right. I'm not going to start calling Buster and I got to make a turn. I'll just wait till I turn right. That's my thinking anyways. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense too with his phone. Like, he spent the whole time texting. Now, some people said, well, maybe he texted it before he left or got onto Moselle Road. Okay, that's a great argument. But the prosecution didn't say that. Prosecution said when he was on Moselle Road is when he started the text. Because your phone records everything. You pick it up, you turn it sideways, you turn a portrait, it tells you exactly what it does. So it said he picked up his phone, went portrait, and typed that in during that time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's more digital evidence. I'm like, I don't get it. So by the time he types it and hits send, he's already passed Maggie's phone. So when is he throwing her phone? When he's texting? So he's got his hands on the wheel. He's one hand texting and putting the window down with what hand? Like, there's too much going on.
Right.
And the man is supposedly hopped up on opioids, which is going to slow your thinking down anyways. Like, there's things that I think are just physically impossible for the guy to do because I couldn't do it straight during the day.
Right.
I couldn't replicate it.
Right. Lots and lots of questions, which I think are great, that we'll get into you
Oh,
from the comments,
sorry, I
you guys.
talked
So
a lot. You go
please,
ahead.
please keep asking your questions, and we will get to them, and we will bring some people in the box. So if you want to come in the box and ask questions, just request that, and we will try to get to all of you guys. One question said in particular, why was he visiting his mom so late? Isn't that suspicious?
Well, so a lot of this stuff, I think in my head, what would I do? I really do think this, right? What would I do? And then I talk to other people and I go on these TikToks and I ask the same people, what would I do? So first of all, you have to go back during the day. So you knew who Miss Shelley was. She was just kind of the person that hung out there. But she had a medical caregiver. It was another woman who testified. She was kind of in and out and didn't have a whole lot to say. But what she did say was that she called Mr. Alec and said, your mom's not in a good place. They took your dad to the hospital and she's very upset. You need to promise me you're going to come by and see her today. And that was earlier in the day. And Alec promised to go see his mother. That's why he went to go see his mother. His caregiver was like, she's a mess. You got to come see her.
Hmm.
And so here's what I'm thinking. So you're out with Paul and, you're running around the property, you're shooting at things, whatever they were doing out in the sunflower field. And Maggie's not home yet. He's probably a little bit upset with Maggie because he wanted to go see his dad in the hospital. And she's getting a foot massage. She's getting a pedicure. She'd stopped at McDonald's. And he texted her this, like, Paul says you're going to get a pedicure? Paul says you're going to get a foot massage? And I think, as a husband, he's probably like, we're supposed to go visit my dad and you're getting a foot massage.
Right,
You know?
right, right.
Maybe she was still mad at him from something that happened over the weekend at USC, but I don't know. So then from there, he goes back to the house, showers. And at my point, I'm thinking, in the SLED timeline, they show Paul's battery life all through that SLED timeline. They don't show Alex. And I want to know why they don't show Alex. Because if I had to guess, because that guy had 50 phone calls that day, 25 texts that I know of. I mean, he's a heavy user of his phone. I bet his battery life was down to less than 10%.
Hmm.
So I know what I do when I shower, my battery life is low. I go plug it in next to my bed.
Right.
And then I go shower, and he showered, and what was he going to do? Gets out and goes eats supper. Paul eats supper. I don't know if they ate together. And then Maggie comes home. She eats quick. So he's already been out. He's already showered. He's eaten. He's tired. And he's, as he said, he sweats anyways. And it's hotter than hell out there, especially in June when it's starting to be rainy. And so what's he do? He goes sits on the couch. Now, I don't know what he was watching, but
Sorry, my
oh,
daughter.
you're fine. I assume he was probably watching maybe USC baseball because they were in the playoffs for the World Series. Either way, he's sitting down, and then Maggie's like, "Come down to the kennels with us," and he's like, "I'm not going." I'm sure Paul's not like asking him to. He just spent a couple hours or spent some time with Paul, but Maggie's asked him to go on kennels, and he said that he's like, "I didn't want to go," and then they left. He didn't know how they got down there, but then he's probably sitting there because I'm thinking, all right, you're sitting there watching TV and you're thinking about, she was supposed to be back and maybe she's mad at you and maybe you screwed up. Oh shit. All right. I'll go down to the kennels. So he gets in his golf cart and he goes down to the kennels. And I think that's how he got down there.
Why do you think he lied about being down there, though? I mean, that was a big piece of that sort of circumstantial evidence that he
Yeah.
lied about being there.
He did. And I capture that moment in the book. It's a picture in the interview that he did in the vehicle. Jim Griffin was in the back seat. Jeff Croft, the SLED agent, was in the back seat, and David Owen was in the front seat. If you remember that, it was kind of from the rear view mirror. And Jeff Croft asked him the question. He says, okay, I just want to get this straight, just so we're all clear. The last time you saw Maggie and Paul was when y'all had supper before they went down to the kennels. And at that moment, Alec looks and he starts to look down and he says, yes, sir. And he said it just like that. That was the lie. Yes, sir. And then he looks down, and it was a freaky moment for me because I'm watching this and watching this and watching this. I finally caught a side eye out of Alec, and I got the screenshot and I got it in the book. that he side-eyes Owen, and then he goes right into this crying bit, and it's like, he was such a good boy, they did him so bad, they did him so bad. Remember that one? That did him so bad was right before they asked him that question.
Yep. Yep.
So he knew that Owen had him in that circle. Remember the circle he talked about?
Hmm.
Little circle. I call it
Hmm.
Circle of Trust, whatever that movie was.
Yep. Circle of trust.
Yeah, so he was in the circle of distrust, and he knew he wasn't getting out of it. Now, why did he lie? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But if I believe him for what he said, these guys spent 80 years in law enforcement and working with SLED and all these other people. Maybe he did have a serious distrust. Maybe he's seen people railroaded. I really don't know. I'm speculating, in my opinion, but maybe he did think that I'm not giving this guy more information than he needs. And I think that was a mistake, because I liken it to the, Judas betraying Jesus, where I think he maybe started crying because I think he felt bad about betraying his family at that point, because I think he did betray his family at that point. And I think anybody would feel shitty about doing that, because that was information they could have used that maybe help keep going, trying to find another killer. But once they started finding out all that financial information, forget about it.
And that was what, I think a lot of people have said so far, is that financial information is what did him in. All of that information, they shouldn't have brought it into court, which I agree. Like, I don't think it had anything to do at all with what happened to Maggie and Paul. Um,
It was that one
and
question they asked Rogan. Remember? At the very end, it was the last question they asked Rogan Gibson. And Jim Griffin asked it, and he's like, Rogan, is there anything you can think of about the relationship with Maggie Murdaugh, Paul Murdaugh, Alec Murdaugh, and the family? Anything that you can think of? And he was like, no. That was the question. That question opened up all the financial information when he said anything. And that
yeah,
was a mistake. That was a defensive mistake, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, some say that they actually feel that Alex took the fall for Buster, and that's what we're going to get into in a minute, because he knew that he was going to go to jail for all these financial, crimes anyways.
What do you mean, take the fall for Buster?
Like Buster did it.
Oh, no. No, Buster didn't. Poor Buster. I mean, the kid has lost his mom, lost his brother, and essentially he's lost his dad. And he's been victimized. Fitz News just had an article over the weekend or before the weekend about some Stephen Smith, now primary suspects, according to them.
Yes.
And Buster Murdaugh's not one of them.
Yes, I know that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Buster was in, I think, Charlotte or Rock Hill or something like that. He's got digital evidence. They've got his girlfriend's mother. They saw his phone driving from upstate to down to Colleton. So, I mean, Buster wasn't anywhere near. I don't know the answer to this, but you may ask this question about why did he take so long to call Buster?
Hmm.
I mean, I've never had two people killed like that I love in front of me, but he knew where Buster was. And I think he thought, this is right here in front of me, not whatever it is, 2 hours away or 2.5 hours away. Maybe he thought Buster was safe. I don't know why he wouldn't call Buster. Maybe he couldn't put himself to do it. I'm sure that was a really hard phone call. I mean, I have no idea what goes through people's minds like that.
Yeah,
I
when they
don't
go
know.
through something as traumatic as that. Yeah, I mean, you question, like, because a lot of people said that the emotions that Alex was showing that night sounded extremely fake. He didn't really have tears, so he was doing the cry without tears. And then even more so when he got on the stand to testify, all those body language experts saying, that was all dissected. And so they're saying, so there's a lot of, why didn't he show emotion? What is it with his body language? Did you feel that actually showed that, okay, he's guilty, or he feels some sort of guilt to that?
Well, if he was faking it, he's probably the best actor out there to do it on such cue, in my opinion. I mean, it didn't take long. It's not like he heard it and then he had to sit there and muster up some tears. Like, he heard it and tears were coming. And the guy was crying all the time. I don't know. You'd probably tell me more about this and your reporting experience of talking to people. I mean, everybody reacts differently, right? Some people are just
Agree.
like this. Some people are just blubbering,
Yep.
can't get anything out. Some people are just shake. They're in shock. I mean, I don't know. I think everybody's different.
Yeah.
I don't know how Alec grieves. I saw it like you guys saw it.
Hmm.
I think everybody that knew him, that testified, thought it was genuine. Everybody that didn't know him thought it was manufactured. I don't know. Truth might be in the middle, but I would rather take other people's opinions who were on the stand that said the same thing over and over and over again.
And so let's get into the question of, like, for instance, why do you think that the woman who was taking care of Alec's mom lied as well?
I don't know if she lied. What do you mean about which?
So about what she said about how long, the timeline for Alex.
Oh, this one I'm going to just say, if you think about this, when he talked to her about that, he had talked to sheriffs, sled agents ad nauseum, right? And I think in his mind, he was trying to recall his timeline as well. Now, whether she interpreted, I was here for 40, what did he say? 40 minutes? 45 minutes?
Yes.
I was here for 45 minutes, right? Of her going, he's telling me I'm here for 45 minutes. He said, no, you're only here for 20. But if you look at the timeline, him driving there, being at his mom's and driving back was about 45 minutes. I think it was 20, 40. It was about an hour, I guess. Again, I think Alex a little OCD. I think he's got a million things going on in his head. Not to mention all the financial stuff. He knew he was bouncing around. You got a boat case. You got your dad dying. Your memory might be all the greatest. I mean, I'll ask you people, who did you talk to 2 days ago between 3 and 4 in the afternoon, and what did you say? Now add all that other stuff on. I'm not giving him excuses. I'm just like, I don't know what happened between those two. It could have been just an interpretation thing, or maybe he could have just said, I was here 20 minutes, but I think she would have been a little bit more direct on that.
Yeah.
Maybe he was being suggestive, but maybe it was trying to get his brain rolling. I have no idea. That's one of those things you're just never going to know.
Right. Do you feel that they had anything to do with the house cleaner who also died at their home?
Satterfield?
Yeah.
The only two people that really know, well, the only three people that really know are all dead.
Right.
I know that Alex said he lied about it, and now he's not lying about it. Hard to keep up with that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who knows what happened there? I mean, wasn't she on some sort of medication or something?
Yeah. Seems like everybody down there is on some sort of medication. Like, for real, doesn't it? I mean, everybody's like addicted to something, opioids or taking something.
I know. So I don't know what happened to that. I really don't. I don't want to speculate because that's all it would be.
Yeah. So, there's been some talk about his case being retried, as we know, because of the clerk who, the book, how she was like left for New York City the next day to do interviews. What are your thoughts on that?
Becky Hill.
Yeah, I'm horrible with names, just so you know. I can never remember people's names. So.
I usually am too, but I've just been on this so much. So I actually went down to that press conference that Jim and Dick did at the state capitol, and I was there and I listened to him. It's an interesting motion. It's very detailed. It's 65 pages. They did their due diligence. They interviewed these jurors, and the TV jurors will say, well, even Sled said, well, your information's drastically different than what other jurors are saying. But this isn't a trial. 12 people don't have to agree on what was said. I mean, they have 4 now, I believe, who are willing to sit and raise their hand and testify, and it's all very similar. So I think he's going to get a new trial, but that's just me. It's got to go through SLED, and they've got to open up the investigation, and then they have to have a hearing on that, and then it's got to go to the State Court of Appeals, who will then overturn it and grant a new trial. There's a lot to go through between here and there, but if the evidence is true, what they have said, then I think he's going to get a new trial. I don't know much about Becky. I haven't read her book. I think she was probably caught up into the limelight and, wanted to write a book. She did get it approved, I think. And sometimes, things get carried away. I don't know.
Yeah, money talks, that's for sure. Like, for sure. So if she was offered, mucho dinero or any of the things, yeah, I mean, who knows? She could have gotten carried away with that lifestyle without a doubt. I think that, we didn't really talk, we talked a little bit about it, but not so much. On a big piece of evidence that the prosecution used was that Snapchat video from Paul. Do you think like that? To me, listening to it, it was a little like damning to me because it goes back to his lies, him saying he wasn't there when he was. They got him on video or on audio. I mean, do you feel like?
How do you think they sounded though on the recording? How do you think they all sounded? Because you're talking about 5.5 minutes later, they're dead.
Right.
How do you think this, as a family, how do you think they sounded?
Right. I mean, they sounded like there were no issues at all whatsoever. Like they were talking about the dog and Maggie was actually laughing like, oh, there's a, chicken in his mouth or whatever in his mouth, So to me, you're absolutely right. It sounded like they were extremely being a normal family, a happy family.
He's like, Mom. Doesn't sound like somebody's like, I got guns around the corner.
Right.
Hurry the hell up. And the other thing I think about in this, and it's never really been talked about, but I think I've written about it in the book. It's very dark down there. I've said that before. And Paul was in that kennel, and I'm not sure which kennel Cash was in. However, I would think Alec would see that he had his light on his phone, because he had his light on trying to show that dog's tail, which, by the way, there was nothing wrong with that dog's tail. Nothing. That required 20 phone calls back and forth and video and all these other things. I don't know. It just all seemed odd to me. But you would think he'd see the backlight, but maybe he didn't, based off of where he was, because the kennels are this way and he was kind of parked this way. So maybe he didn't see it. But he shouldn't have lied.
No, right. I think that's what got him in the most amount of trouble was the fact that he just wasn't trustworthy in several interviews, discussions, if you will.
Yeah, and I think the jury instructions, part of the jury instructions anyways, were, and I forget the legal name for it, but it's basically if you catch him lying for one lie, you can, it's one for all, something like that. I forget what it is. But if you believe he's lying in one, he's lying for them all. And to me, being down there at 8:44 doesn't say you pulled the trigger. It just says you were there at 8:44 and you lied. And that's not a good thing when you're the husband and you're the person who found him and now you lied about it.
Right. So it's 10 to 9, and I told you this, we would try to keep this to an hour because of your voice. So I want to just ask you.
Keep going. I'm fine.
I mean, right? It goes by so fast. You're like, oh my God. Yeah. Lots of questions about DNA. The hair that was in Maggie's hand wasn't tested.
What I know about that, and the only reason I know about that is there's a video out online that was after the trial of some of the sheriff deputies. They said, according to this video, according to these deputies, that was her hair. What was underneath her fingernails? I know that Tori did a video on that. I got blown up with questions about CB Rose DNA underneath her fingernails. I think if you read that DNA report, it doesn't state that it was definitively CB Rose DNA underneath her fingernails. And so I think it was just a report that tried to exclude a lot of the people, boat crash victims being a lot of them,
Yeah.
of whose DNA it was, but they didn't. To me, I think they should have expanded their search of people. They might have gotten somebody, but to this day, I don't know if we know exactly whose DNA it is. And if they could, I don't know if there's enough DNA that was underneath their fingernails to be able to properly do the test to, give it that high percentage of what, 90, 98, 99%.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the question, besides everybody's wanting to know what you're drinking in your glass, in your cup, lots of comments on that, is it bourbon by any chance?
I got a little Buffalo Trace tonight.
Buffalo Trace.
It looks like I've
Yep.
been drinking a lot, but it's just a little bit. It's just Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, yeah. Which I thought was funny. And is what do you think happened that night? What's your opinion? What happened that night?
I think that Paul was the number one target. Maggie was not even anybody's sights at all. No pun intended there, but I don't think Maggie was. I think Maggie was a mistake. I think it was Paul. A combination of, in my opinion, the boat crash, and possibly, and Paul's knowledge of an unsolved murder or murders based off of who his dad was. Okay. And I think Paul, at the time he was 20, was in a lot of trouble. He had those BUI cases. He was under indictment. He was facing time in jail. His dad put down like a $500,000 retainer to the Jim and Dick. Like, things weren't going well. The family legacy was not looking good. I mean, it was not good. And I think a 20-year-old mind, he was like, listen, I've got some information here I think could probably exonerate me, or at least help me get out of this. And maybe he told the wrong person. Told a friend who got back to, whoever did these murder or murders. And they were like, we're not getting taken down by, Buster's little brother. We're going to shut this kid up, So I think it was just a combination of that. And that's probably, if you're going to kill somebody and target somebody, one of the easiest places, because there's nobody out there.
Right.
There's nobody out there.
Right.
I mean, nobody. And you talk about the gunshots, right? Listen, I live out in the country. I hear gunshots all the time. I was up there tonight working on some things, and I heard some gunshots outside. And it's not like, robberies are happening around here. I don't know. People are target shooting, might be hunting nearby. I don't know. But it's like living by an airport. After a while, you stop hearing the planes.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, that's very true.
So I think that they came in around 7, maybe 7:30. They knew Paul's habits. They knew those trails. They knew the trails behind the cabin very well. They hid their car, so if anybody drove down Moselle Road, either way, you'd never see it. I think they walked right across Moselle Road into the woods. No one will see them, and they walked right on through and just sat there and waited. You can see clearly the kennels, and you're behind the hangar, and you can clearly see the kennels. You can hear everything. The dogs aren't going to, come at you, number one, because I think the killers are known to the family. I think they knew exactly who those killers were. And I think the dogs knew them. The dogs probably hunted with them. But even saying that, those weren't guard dogs. Those are Labradors, and there's chickens running around. Their focus is in front of other people and chickens and getting fed and treats or whatever it is. They're just not, they're not these, I smell something, I'm going to go attack it. If anybody's ever have a lab, it's not that way. I mean, you might get the stray one that does it, but so I don't think the dogs would recognize it, and you just kind of sit back. When Alex said he came down and he put the chicken up, right? He said, I got off the golf cart, grabbed the chicken out of Bubba's mouth, put the chicken back up, which was right next to the feed room. Then what'd you do? And I went back to the house, and then this whole thing of back and forth. What'd you say? And I don't know. I think that Alec and Maggie were probably talking. Either he gave her a ride over to the hangar where you walk inside the hangar. And as a mother, she probably went in there, was going to clean because it's always a mess. The boys are down there. Or he was driving along and she walked along the golf cart. And once you go in front of that hangar, you're never going to see her. And if she stops talking, she's a very loud person. If she stops talking when she goes into that hangar, and the next thing you see is Alec driving off in the golf cart, well, you know that it takes 2 minutes for Alec to drive from the golf cart to get to the house.
Mhm.
And Maggie stopped talking, and Paul's out there by himself. You think Maggie just went on the golf cart with Paul because you can't see. You're in those woods, and the hangar's obstructing your view, but you see the golf cart lights driving away. You assume Maggie's on that golf cart with him, which is why I think it surprised the hell out of everybody. And what do we do? Holy shit, what do we do?
Mhm.
Well, you just killed her son. I mean,
Right, right, right. There's been questions, several questions of, and I think you just kind of answered it. You said they were sort of staking out the place, but it's way too coincidental that whoever shot them, knew that they would be down there at that time, or like that's a huge coincidence. So you think that they just sat there and waited for him? They knew what his schedule was.
yeah, I knew what his schedule was. I mean, Paul was another heavy user of his phone and on Snapchat. I mean, everybody knew that he was taking care of cash.
Oh, paused.
Yep. Yeah, my lord. Everybody knew he was taking care of cash, that he was coming back in the sunflower fields. Like he was very vocal about what he did, and I don't think it was a surprise to the friend group.
Yeah. And
And
someone,
they knew
sorry, go
his
ahead.
and they knew his habits. Right? Paul was not one to sit up and watch TV. Like if he was at Moselle, he was down at the shop. I think Nathan Tootin said that. Like that's where everything was. That's what we hung out at, was down at the shop. And the shop is all those little buildings there. You've got the skinning room, you've got the hangar which has everything in it, you've got the dog kennels, the feed room. That's where Paul wanted to be. So they knew he was going to go down there, going to
Yeah.
go check out the dog's tail or feed him treats. Maggie's dog was Bubba. She wanted to go see Bubba. I mean, I just go by what people do. And that's what Paul did. And if you know Paul, that's what he did. So
Right.
now we just sit and wait. And we don't know for any fact whatsoever that this was the first time that they attempted to do this.
Right. Right.
Who
Good
knows?
valid point. Yeah, really, really true.
They
Do
could
you
have
think
definitely.
that Alex actually witnessed the murder? He was there and saw it?
I really don't. I mean, as a father myself, uh, no. You just there was a point in that trial when he broke down and really broke down and started to cry and he could barely talk, and he talked about whoever did this had such a hate for Paul. I mean, he was shaking. It was so real. I don't think he saw it. I don't think it was cartel. Other people think it was cartel, and
Yes,
that's
a lot.
that's
Yes.
fine. Um, and that's fine if you do. And somebody said something about it's my opinion. Yes, this is my opinion,
Right.
based off of evidence and experience. I mean, I'm not retrying this case. I'm
Right.
just
I think it's funny because I watched one of your videos, saying, and I think I even commented on it, how, there's so many people out there who send you hate or who comment just because you don't agree with what they agree with.
right.
And I think that's such an issue in this crime world. I told you this, like I get so much hate because I question things, particularly with the Idaho case. And I think it's interesting that people say, oh no, it's this way or the highway. And they
Right.
don't look sort of at anything else. And what you're talking about right now absolutely raises suspicion. A hundred
Right.
percent. Why? One question that I thought was good. Can Alex change his answer if there is another trial?
No, because they'll pull up his testimony.
Okay.
I believe
That's
that's not what. Yeah,
Yeah,
he can't come in with a completely different story. They're like, hold on.
right, right. Um, I'm just reading to make sure that there's no questions that
I
I
think
missed.
politics are a little bit of the same way too.
Yeah,
In America, if and I'm not trying to get into politics whatsoever here. If you're on the left, you're this, and you're on the right, you're this, and I mean we're split, and there's no moving the needle.
right,
But I don't look at Alec as innocent or guilty. I was just looking at the evidence completely. I've said at the beginning, he's a bad dude. I don't know if I'd want to be hanging around a guy like that, but I just looked at the evidence and it just doesn't make sense to me. And if I found evidence that said, oh, this guy did it, I would say that too.
Right.
I have no dog in this hunt. None.
Right. Right. I think that's interesting, is that exactly what you said. You just see, you believe that there is an innocent man behind bars.
I'm able to separate all the financial stuff, all the bad stuff that everybody said about him, and just look purely at the evidence. That's it.
So, do you think if they retry it, he'll be found innocent?
I do, and the biggest reason I think, second trials I think are easier because you already know what every witness is going to say to every question.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's like knowing the answers of the test before you go take it.
Right.
I don't think that the financial information will see the light of day, so it'll be a much shorter trial. And I don't think Alec will testify. I think the reason he testified is because all of that financial evidence made him look like an awful person, which it was true.
Yeah.
But I think that forced him into it. I mean, I don't think Jim and Dick wanted him to, but I think he wanted to do it. But if that financial information doesn't get in, you won't see Alex sit on that stand.
No, no. And everybody is saying that about the financial. Everybody thinks that it has to go back to the financial. Madison wants to know, is he supposed to take a polygraph test? Do you know?
I believe they wanted him to take one, but, courts don't allow it in evidence anyway. So
Right. So what was it? What would it matter?
it wouldn't matter if you passed or failed. He couldn't bring it into evidence. Yeah.
Oh, again, and I'm going back to the Netflix documentary, that the second part of it, that what I thought was interesting was them saying, they interviewed, there were a potential of 900 people in the jury pool at one time. And that area is so small, and obviously everybody knows the Murdaugh. Do you feel at all that the jury pool was tainted?
All I can go by is what a lot of followers message me on, and that I don't think they were as well liked by the regular people as they thought they were.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Why do they say that? Why do your followers say that?
Well, I mean, not everybody in that county or in that area is like the Murdaughs. I mean, that's a very kind of poor,
It
rural
is.
area. And you said people, they have drug problems, they've got life problems, employment problems, and they were the people that put you away.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
As many, blood drives and food drives as PMPED wanted to do, sometimes it just doesn't make things go away. So you got 80 years of history behind you. That's what I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely
I would
right.
move the trial. Definitely, I move the trial. Probably upstate, over by Greenville, maybe closer to the mountains, somewhere as far away from Colleton County as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Charleston, but I doubt it. It's too close.
No, it is close. It's close. Ange said, can you tell us your thoughts about AM staging himself being shot?
I can only tell you from a man's perspective, really. And think about this. So I don't know how many days it was after his law license was just, well, let's start in the beginning. His wife and son were killed. Okay. All this financial information was coming out, and he knew that was bad because he knew he did it. His law license is suspended. He's fired from the firm that his father helped create. And I think he was just like back up against the wall. I've never been there, but I can only imagine that that's just a lot of stuff for one guy to take on. And, a lot of people think sometimes that way, like people will be better off without me. Yeah. Buster will be better off. He'll get, money and they don't have to worry about me anymore. I don't know. Maybe it was a grand plan between him and Cousin Eddie. Could have been that too. Hard.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what your thoughts were on Cousin Eddie.
Yeah, I really don't. The most I've ever seen him talk is on that Netflix. Have you got to that spot yet?
The second part? I have not seen him at all talk on the second part.
I think he's in the third part more.
Okay. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Second part starts out with the auction. That's where a lot of my film is in the beginning when we're at the auction. in that
Is
in
that
that
it?
episode.
So you don't have one way or the other. You don't have a feeling one way or the other about Cousin Eddie.
No, but I mean, somebody was getting Alec drugs. Alec was writing them all these checks, and you'll watch the episode. They ask him about the checks. He says Alec gave him the checks, put it in my bank account, write a check back to him. And that doesn't make any sense either. But there was a lot of money, over $2 million that went to cousin Eddie,
Yeah.
and that wasn't all for pills. I mean, that's enough pills to kill a
Yeah.
elephant.
Right.
So I don't know. I haven't really gone down that whole drug aspect, the rabbit hole, if you will. Just kind of tried to avoid that and just stick to the murder. I know it probably has, some effect somehow, but I don't think it's a major effect for me, anyways. I don't think it had any drug related.
So there's questions about where were the clothes that he had? I'm not sure what that means, Susie. She said she's asked you this. Where were the clothes he had? I'm not sure whose clothes
Yeah,
on
I
that
know.
afternoon. Never showed
Sure.
them.
The clothes. I don't. Alec on the stand didn't even know where the clothes were. You got to remember, these people had everybody doing something
Oh, the
for him.
clothes he wore that night. I
How
got
many
you.
people?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
How many clothes he had wore that night? So he's like, I don't know. I took them off and I showered. Because I remember he called Blanca and said, "Hey, can you come clean up the house, make it look like Maggie would want it? People are going to be coming over, etc." And she said she grabbed the pants. She didn't see the shirt. But what we don't know is all those law partners and their wives and everybody that came to the house that night, they were in the main house. Remember, they put the food away. They
Yes.
cleaned up a little bit.
Yep.
Who knows? Maybe somebody put them into a bag. I mean, I have no idea what happened to the clothes. But I will say this. It wasn't until August 11th, until the August 11th interview, which is the same day Duffy Stone recused himself, the 14th solicitor, was the first time David Owen asked him about the clothes. And he said, when I saw you that night, you had white t-shirt, shorts, tennis shoes. But in the sunflower video, right? The Snapchat, the sunflower video, you were wearing blue shirt, khaki pants, leather shoes. Where are those clothes? And Alex like, it's August 11th. You want me to go back and tell you what I wore and what I did with it on June 11th?
2 months later.
I don't know. I mean, everybody thinks because of this major day, you should remember every single second. I think I'm the opposite. I would be the opposite. I would try to forget it all.
Yeah. Right.
Or some of it would just be blocked out, but I don't know where the clothes are. I don't know. Don't know.
Or the weapons, right? The weapons were never discovered.
The weapons were never discovered. My theory is that the real killers probably came somewhere from Brunson or Allendale, kind of that north area. And if you come down through Miley, if you know the area, you kind of come down through Miley to get the Moselle Road. You got shots fired. You're running to go get your truck. You're probably not going to head back the same direction you just came from. Go the other way. But when you go the other way, you go back out to Walterboro Highway, and then you can take a right on Old Sakahatchee Road and head back that direction. Now, when you go over Old Sakahatchee Road, you're going to go across a lot of bridges because you got all that water going through there. I would guess it's over on one of those bridges over there, underneath the bridge. Could be in a field, buried somewhere. Who knows? But I do like the family guns. People said, well, the family guns, right? They just so happen to bomb family guns. I think that's a great answer because I think or a great question because I think the killers were probably younger. And younger, I mean under 30, probably under 25. And if you're under 25 and you're poor and you live in that area, like you have guns, right? You shoot, everybody hunts there. You're not going to use your own because somebody's going to ask you where your gun is.
Right.
But if you know the Murdaughs and you know the Murdaughs' routines and you know where, I don't know, if there's a hidden key somewhere underneath that rock by that door or they don't lock doors and you know there's a whole gun room full of guns, we can go get our own. Paul doesn't know where half the guns are anyways. Nobody knows where these guns are. They'll never miss them. Go get them. They're going to be gone this weekend, by the way, in Columbia, and Paul's gone. In Charleston. So the house was empty. Let's go get some guns.
Right, because the ballistics never matched any of the guns at the Murdaughs, correct?
Uh, the ballistics matched the shells ejected that were found from earlier shots. But what they didn't find was Winchester steel shot spent cartridges. And so a steel shot, if you remember the shots that killed Paul, first one was a turkey load, second one was uh, first one was turkey load, second one was duck shot, which is steel. So you had lead and steel. And nowhere on the property were they able to find any unspent shell casings of Winchester steel shot cartridges, which means they didn't have them there. So one cartridge was loaded into that gun and ejected from that gun, and nowhere else on that property can they find it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Right. Interesting.
One stray bullet.
Right. There's been a couple good questions in here. One is, why do you think, isn't it suspicious that Maggie's clothes were sort of laid out on the floor as they were?
Yeah, I go back to that same thing with the people in there. I don't know. Maybe some lady was like putting clothes out to, for funerals or something. Who knows? I really don't know. People do weird stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Do you have a person who you think did it, or persons?
I have a short list of a couple of people. Yeah, I don't name them in my book. I'm not going to. Clearly, I don't want to get myself in a whole lot of trouble. But I see a lot of people with big words and all caps. These are his opinions. You are 100% correct. Whoever's writing that these are my opinions. These are my opinions.
Right.
But I'm following my evidence, or excuse me, my opinions come from the evidence and these. I think by now you can kind of see how I put things together a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of real world stuff, knowing that area, knowing the people down there, knowing how their friends are connected, knowing how some things have happened in that county. It just makes sense. So I do have a couple of people in mind, but
you're not going to, and I think that makes sense because again, let's look what happened with the Idaho case with people who are saying they think this person did it, they think this person did it, and then if that person didn't do it, there's all this suspicion around them.
Right. And we talk about unsolved murders. There's a lot of unsolved murders in the state of South Carolina, unfortunately, and Colleton County has got a lot, unfortunately. So there's a lot to choose from. But I think there was, with his father being in the 14th solicitor's office, knowing what he knew, there's just a lot of stuff going on there that I think Paul found out about and was going to use that information to get out of his case.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of discussions about, DNA in here as well, because there was no real DNA that was found, correct?
No. I mean, Alex, CB's, excuse me, Rogan, people that, had always been around there.
And that's, yeah. Depp's mom wants to know thoughts on Judge's final statements to Alex M. about a son.
I mean, the judge can say whatever he wants to. It's his prerogative. It's his court. I would be interested if he said that to other people he sentenced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a little deep.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's his court. Say whatever he wants to.
Yep. Agree. Yeah. So, and it's not, so I want to get into your book a little bit because I want to make sure that everybody knows about the book. So tell me, you said that you got people were offering you. Yeah. First of all, what's the name of it? Where can people buy it? Some people actually want a signed copy of it. Are you doing things like that? Give us all the lowdown on that.
Yeah, sure. So it's called Defending. I ran off a couple of names and I like this one. Defending Alex Murdaugh, Not Guilty by Reasonable Doubt. And for you opinion people out there, this is my opinion. This is not the fact.
Right.
Not Guilty by Reasonable Doubt. And this is an Amazon kind of copy. It says not for sale. So by reasonable doubt, it's kind of hard to see, but in the real copy, you'll see it. It's going to be for sale on Amazon shortly. I'm actually was working on formatting stuff tonight. It's especially with Kindle, it's a little wonky, and it's my first one, so I'm trying to figure out the formatting. But the book is done. I'm just working on formatting. It takes anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. But you can pre-order the Kindle now. That's live. If you don't have a Kindle, it can send it to basically any electronic device, is what I've been told. So you do not have to have a Kindle to order the Kindle. It's $9.99 for the Kindle. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my website, crimeandcask.com, and that's AND, Crime and Cask. There is a link on there. Just go to that. I'm going to get a bunch of copies in and send them out. That has been going really crazy, which is great. I love it. A lot of people have been sending me stories. I got one guy whose daughter, not sure how old she is, but his young daughter got him into it and started watching mine and got him to watch the TikTok. And he wanted to make sure I had her name
Oh, I
prominently
love
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool that, they daughter and dad. So
Yeah, I
it's
love
just kind
that.
of bringing people together. Unfortunately, it's a big tragedy, and I get that. And people are like, "Well, you're making money off of it." Well, okay. I mean, isn't everybody from the TV lawyers to the podcasters to
Absolutely. Absolutely.
newspapers, TVs, Netflix? I mean, why am I the bad guy? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what people were suggesting this to you, and what one day you just were like, I'm going to sit down and write this book?
I first said no because I was like, "What am I gonna write a book about?" Like, he's guilty. Like, you guys, okay? The fall of Murdaugh is. There's a lot of them out there, and there's more coming, I'm sure. But no one has written a book with this kind of direction on it that he's not guilty. And so it was easier to write for me because there's so many sources that you can go to try to gather thoughts and write them down, because it was so widely talked about. There's a lot of testimony. I've listened to more hours of YouTube testimony than I ever care to count how much it was. But and then the rest of it is just me and my interpretations and my experiences that I took from TikTok, pictures that I took out there. And each page you're going to go through is going to give you what happened, what the evidence was, and what I think about it.
I think that's great. Is there anything in the book that you think will surprise readers?
Uh, I think there's too much to name.
Really? Really?
Yeah, there's a lot in here that's going to surprise a lot of people. The crime scene, especially, I don't know if you can see that
Mm-hmm. Yep.
crime scene. I mean, the way I break things down and bring it and turn it around and bring it back doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The footprints, the tire tracks, um, the Maggie's phone. I'd go in detail. It's probably 3 or 4 pages of just that detail, kind of what I told you in the beginning of how the phone went out. And I use the SLED timeline down to the second. Then I go back to my experiences down to the second. Or my experiments down to the second. Like, I'm not off by 5 or 10 seconds. It's to the second. That's how crazy it is.
That's insane. That's insane.
And I'm not
So
like
people are,
really trying to do something to make it fit. Like, I had people with me, and we did it again and did it again, and we kept getting the same results. It's crazy.
hmm I agree. And I think that it's important for people to know, lots of comments about this. This is Crime and Cask's opinion, right? People
Right.
are asking though, is it evidence-based information? And from what, I mean, I think you've explained that very well. It is. You have evidence to back it up.
I'm using the SLED timeline, I'm using testimony, and I'm using the evidence from my experiences. So I'm explaining to you how I did the experiment and how it relates to the evidence that was presented in the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what's important. I mean, like, if you look at any of the books that are out there, on like the Idaho case, for example, it's all the same. People these authors put their opinions in the books, but it's backed up by evidence. And so
Yeah, I think
there's,
I have about as much fact as the prosecution did. I'm just
yeah,
using their information and bringing it back to a different way. Somebody asked who Steven's killer is. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anyone. I mean, a couple suspects were named, but I don't think that. You don't believe though that it's tied to this case at all, right?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of starting with the.
There's certainly a lot of speculation of that, but as I said, I don't know what murder Paul knew about. There's a lot of them in the state of South Carolina, a lot of them in Colleton County. Certainly could have been his, but I don't know that. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's right. We may never know. Like truthfully, we may never know what
Somebody's
happened.
got to talk.
Yeah, somebody has to talk. Exactly. Okay, it's 9:21. I am going to get this over at 9:30 at the latest because I really appreciate your time and I know you're busy. Really quickly though, so you did not have TikTok before this case?
I got it. My kids, usually I get social media when my kids get on something. And now they're a little bit older, but they got on TikTok and they were laughing and doing these things. And they always wanted me to look at it, so I got on TikTok. So I was doing some other TikToks prior to that, doing this. But for me, this thing took off when the trial started. I probably maybe had it for 6 months prior to that.
That's amazing. That's awesome because you have a lot of followers for a short period of time.
Yeah, it really grew. And there's a lady, Corey, I think it's a day in the life of Corey down in Savannah. And she talks a lot about Savannah. She's one of the top bloggers in Savannah. She's helped me a lot because there's, Savannah's just so close to our Hampton area here that it just really grew. And I think people are just interested generally in what I have to say, good or bad, agree or not agree.
Right. Okay, I will say if anybody wants to come up in the box and ask Crime and Cask questions, now is your time to do so. All you have to do is click the little guest thing at the bottom and request to be in it, and we'll bring people up if you guys have questions for that about his book, about anything that has taken place. And so people want to know, how long will it take to get your book if they pre-order it?
Well, the Kindle will download immediately. It's going to be out within a week. Let's just put it that way. I have a drop dead date of October 17th. If I get these formatting things done, it could come out earlier than the 17th. I'm trying to get it done and out before this weekend when the Murdaugh Lifetime movies come out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it may come out on the 17th, which is the Tuesday after the Murdaugh movies. But anyway, sometime between now and the 17th, but I'm hoping for this weekend.
I'm telling you to have written a book. I have been trying to write my book forever, and like you just got it and turned it around like very quickly.
Well, I said in my head, I knew what I was going to talk about. A, B, all the information I was going to talk about was already in my TikToks. I've already done all of the thinking, all of the experiments. I mean, all the work was done. And then, a lot of the, there are some where I go word for word from the testimony. I mean, that's just there. I mean, that's out there. So that kind of helps give context. But, it's such a publicized case that a lot of the information was there. Doesn't mean I didn't spend 8 hours a day for weeks sitting in my office just banging at a keyboard. It probably took me longer to edit this thing than it did to write it. Because when I started writing, it just started like flowing out of me. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've heard that with. We get, the writers are just like to it, right at it. I haven't gotten there. Did you work with a publisher or is this self-published?
Right now through Amazon. I'm trying to work through, again, formatting stuff with Barnes & Noble. Having some more difficulties with Barnes & Noble than with Amazon. But and I've had other people help me edit this and legal look through it. And, it's insured. We're all kinds of cross the T's and dotted the I's kind of thing.
Yeah. What you have to do.
It's been fun. I told my my dad, and he was like, "You did what? You wrote a book?"
Right.
I was like, I can't believe it either.
I think it's great. I really think it's
and
great.
Book number two is going to come out if there's a new trial.
Yeah, For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us one more question. A lot of people want to know what's going on with your voice. How come your voice sounds so different?
Ah, well, yeah. Hey, everybody, crowd of calves coming at you. Yeah, no, that's a TikTok filter. That's always been. I started with that a long time ago, and I like it. I have fun with it. Have you ever noticed sometimes when I do those, and I kind of elongate sentences, words, and a crowd of calves coming at you. I just like the voice and the sound of that myself, and you see myself laughing at it. I get a kick out of it. That's all. And I just kind of started it, and but that's not my real voice. This is my real voice, although it's a little hoarse from from yesterday. But
Yeah, I absolutely
which
love it.
one do
I
you
think
like better?
ask what do you guys like better? Which in the
Take a
comment
poll.
we can put up a little survey if the mods want to put up a little survey. Which voice do you like better? I heard someone say they can't understand you with it, but I think a lot of other people are like, we love that voice. Yeah, I think it's perfect. So, but some people are saying real. Who knows? Real, the real. Both are
Yep.
fun. I think it's super fun. I love the fact that it's like sort of almost like your persona now, right? Like you've got this sort of. I think it would be hard to leave it. You've done all your your videos with it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
think that
know. It takes some doing to some editing to get that way. Because if I do a two-parter, like I got to go to this and upload it and change the voice. But I just have fun with it. That's all.
it's so fun. It's so okay. One last time, name of the book, where they can get it. If you want to hold it up for everybody to see,
Yeah.
please.
Coming out this week. I'll give you the day if you want to just shoot something out on a video or something.
Yep.
But it's Alec Murdaugh, Not Guilty by Reasonable Doubt. It is going to be at Amazon on Kindle, soft copy, hard copy. People have asked me to do the voice. What are they? Yeah,
The voice, an ebook
the
or listening
audio, the audio book.
audiobook. Yes.
Yeah, I'll look into that. We'll see. But they
I
want
think
the audio book in the TikTok voice.
yes, I think you should do an audiobook. That's how I get the majority of my books because I'm in the car and I'll just listen to them or whatnot. So, hi Willa. Yeah, so I think that audio would be great. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, but check it out on Amazon. I was trying to get it so it was on the 11th, which is I think the last day of Prime Day. I don't think it's going to be the 11th, but it might be Friday of this week. But I will get the exact date out. The book's done. I'm just working on tiny little formatting things, and then it's off. So
Awesome.
yeah,
I think we have one last question. That's the final question of the night. That's really important that people want to know. Best bourbon.
oh, I'll tell you right now. I'll get it right here.
I'm not a bourbon drinker. Like I can't drink brown liquor at all. Whiskey
Yeah.
or any of that scotch. No, it gets me sick.
This is my favorite. It comes from the same Buffalo Trace, and I don't open it because I don't drink it very often because it's that good and it's that expensive. This is a bottle called Willet.
Wow, that's a cool looking bottle.
It is. Yeah, it's a pot still reserve. It is absolutely amazing, but that's my favorite one right there, Willet.
It's got to be so expensive. I can't even believe how expensive bourbons can get.
Yeah, that bottle I think I paid $140 or something like for it, which
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not one you want to drink on a
Regular
Sunday night.
basis. Right.
Special occasions.
Right.
Well, I wish the best for your bills. Thank you for having me on.
I
It was so
appreciate you
fun.
coming on. Yeah, maybe the Bills will turn it around, and I will definitely be getting your book. I know a lot of people on here will as well. And there's been a lot of repeat questions that you answered at the beginning, so I do want to let people know that this whole interview will be posted on my YouTube channel, 716 Girl in ATL. If
Oh,
you
nice.
guys, yeah, so follow me on the YouTube as well. I'm just starting to get that up, but this will be on there. I think it's important because people did miss a lot of the beginning of it. We had a lot of people, almost 400 people jumping into as the interview went on. So I want to make sure that people can actually see that as well.
Yeah, and I'll follow you because I also have a YouTube channel. It's Crime and Cask.
Awesome.
Look it up at YouTube. Yeah, I take a lot of the videos that I do on TikTok and put them up there, and that's really growing. Amazon, Defendant Alec Murdaugh, Not Guilty by Reasonable Doubt.
Thank you so much for being here, Crime and Cask. Thank you to everybody watching for your awesome questions. And, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. If there's a second trial come up, you got to promise you'll come back and we'll talk to you about that as well.
Absolutely. And as I always say, Crime and Cask out.
I love it. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks.
We'll see you next
See
time.
you. Appreciate you. Bye.